how that works. Joining me now, Kevin McCarthy, former Speaker of the House. Mr. Speaker, so Kamala dropped out of the 2020 race in November of 2019 before the Iowa caucuses, and she said at the time that she knew that she didn't have a path forward. What's changed now for her? Is it just that some big money will line up behind her, or do you consider the possibility of her being the sacrificial lamb for the people really running the Democrat Party, as someone to just, finally dismiss her and just get ready for 2028?
Well, there could be two rules of thought here. Nancy Pelosi was the person behind this, but I was told by a couple Democrat congressional members from California that behind the scenes, Nancy Pelosi says Kamala Harris would be worse than Biden. So the other thing you see is, you're correct, she dropped out of the primary for president, even when she ran for Senate, and she's only running against another Democrat because we have the top two in California. They had to retool her campaign. She comes from San Francisco, of all places. That's been her history. They may be pushing her out at the very beginning to see if she collapses really soon, and then bring another Democrat up and have an open race inside the convention. But for the Democrats to say democracy's on the ballot, that's hypocrisy now. And for the number one question that she's going to have to answer now is, why did she lie to the American public? This is the Democrats' Watergate. It is not going to be washed away. They want to know who knew and when and why didn't they say anything. And she's the number one defender and liar of this entire time. Every time I went out forward and said after my meetings with this president that I challenged that he's not the same Joe Biden, she was the one to attack me, and so was Nancy Pelosi.
Well, Mr. Speaker, she just hid Biden's decline like 24 hours ago or 36 hours ago in that call with donors that NBC did the big piece on. The donors were frustrated and angry after this call because it was poorly run. They weren't getting any explanations. But Kamala Harris said he's the man. Joe Biden is the man, and I've seen him make. So right up until the last minute, she's been lying to the American people. So with a party that's done that for really 3 years, how do they regain any sense of legitimacy or trust at this point, regardless of who they nominate?
They don't. They're going to have to continue to go through. They're going to have to answer the question, should Joe Biden literally stay as president, or would he end like Nixon and have to resign? Why wouldn't, if they truly believed in Harris, why wouldn't they make her president? Give her Air Force One to fly around. Give her a greater strength. Let her pick her nominee for VP to become the vice president. That would be a real strong ticket, but they're not. What I'm finding now is they ought to go back and read Kepling, right? The person who keeps his head while everybody else is losing theirs. They're moving too fast, too quickly in this, and they've never answered the number one fundamental question: why have you lied to us for the last 3 years? Look, she was the key vote that brought us inflation. She was the border czar that has failed time again. She comes from San Francisco. She is weak on crime. She is not going to sell in these other places, even Democrats themselves. They're just so wanting to move away from Joe Biden. They literally privately told me last week that they were afraid she was worse. Newsweek, a week after that debate, Kamala Harris polling even got worse for her. So I'm not sure that this answers any questions, but only opens more. She's going to collect all the negatives of Joe Biden and the lying of the administration, but whatever positive there, I don't know how it adds to it.
Well, and I think also the question here is, how does she connect with those working class voters, Mr. Speaker, that Trump's had such a lot of success with, at least if these polls are anywhere near accurate, in these swing states? So I'm not sure how she does any better with any of those voters than Joe Biden from Scranton and Wilmington is going to do.
She won't. Look, Joe Biden being from Scranton helped him. Kamala Harris being from San Francisco does not. Even her interview with Lester Holt, she couldn't get through the border. I mean, time and again, every time she goes to campaign, she's a worse campaigner than we've even looked on paper. So I don't understand that this movement so quickly of where they want to go. What I see really happening here is they're even going to get challenged on the money. I know what they tried to do. Take Biden's name off and Harris. that's going to get challenged in court. And the FEC is pretty clear. You've got to give that money back. Or if you run it to a super PAC, that is different because a candidate has one advantage. They get to buy TV at a lower rate than super PACs. And that would be a real disadvantage. But if I was anybody, I would challenge Kamala Harris's right to that money because that is a continual lie to the American public. They gave that money for Joe Biden running for president. They didn't say, when you talk about democracy, when you talk about the rule of law, the Democrats have thrown that all out the window. And if Joe Biden said he'd only get off the ballot if God told him or if a doctor told him, then he's off the ballot now? So tell me what God said and then tell me what the doctor said. So why are you staying as president?
Yeah, and it's such humiliation for Biden. I mean, Mr. Speaker, you've been around Washington a long time, so have I. But if this decision is being made to force the guy, and he didn't write that letter, I'm sorry, he didn't write that letter, I don't know who wrote it, but he didn't write it. But to force him to put out a letter, not even giving him the dignity of being able to go on camera and do it the right way, oh, he's going to do something later in the week. What about the optics of that? That is a shiv in his back up until the very end.
Yeah, think about all what they have done to him. Why wouldn't they give this president who's sitting there the right to give an Oval Office address, talk to the entire American public about his own future, in his own words, say why he would no longer be on the ballot? They denied his ability for American history, that somehow it is a tweet for the history of America instead of in your own voice, in your own words, in your own passion. This is how bad this party is.
Well, what do you think Obama is up to here? I mean, he didn't come out and endorse Kamala Harris. I will say, again, that other than maybe Pelosi, Schumer's pretty smart as politics go. He's the smartest and most popular Democrat around, right? So he decided he wasn't going to come out and endorse her. What's he thinking?
He's actually the smartest one in the room in the Democratic Party right now because he was the levers behind the scenes pushing this. Remember, he jumped Joe Biden when Joe Biden was his own vice president. But what he has done here is helped push Joe Biden out. He had Axelrod come out a year ago, just knifing Joe Biden the entire time, telling him he was going to lose. He started pushing members to come out against him. And now he's smart enough to take a pause, not to just jump where you go to Kamala Harris, because he knows that could even be worse for the ticket overall. Take a deep breath and wake up the next day and let's think about what we're going to do. You know, there is an advantage for Democrats here. Republicans are done with their convention. President Trump had to select his vice president nominee without knowing who he was going to run against, and now we're off to the races. They get to have another 4 weeks before their convention. They can sit and put a whole ticket together with already know our entire game plan. That is one advantage the Democrats can have, and Obama is the only one smart enough to take a deep breath and say, pause for a second.
And isn't it true she could flame out in the next couple of weeks, and then she'll be off the contenders list? I mean, if they're willing to do what they did to a guy in Washington for a half a century, the humiliation they rained down upon him today, you don't think if she flubs it up in the next couple of weeks, which is entirely possible, that she'd be off and they'd be on to the next person?
Not only is there a chance of her doing it, that is the history of Kamala Harris, of flaming out. She had 20,000 people show up to her announcement for president, probably one of the best rollouts, and she didn't even make it to one primary. No one has ever voted for her for president, and now they're going to make her the nominee? That's unheard of. This is a party that does not care about the rule of law, does not care about democracy, and they are the Machiavellian party because they think the end justifies the means, and they want to blame everything else for every dirty trick they've ever done.
Goodbye, old puppet. Hello, new puppet. Mr. Speaker, thanks for joining us. All right.